Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Doggart, and I am the president of Network 2020. I started working at Network 2020. It was my first job right out of college, actually, right when the organization was getting off the ground. So I was there in the very beginning as the founder was going through the process of figuring out what the gaps were that this organization would address and how we would do that, and then all the nitty-gritty of applying for 501c3 status, which is the tax-exempt status in the United States, and seeking grants and really building an organization. So I was there at the very beginning. I got into that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in school. I studied history. It was a very good training in terms of writing and perspective, but it isn't the kind of field of study that gives you a natural path forward. But what I did know is that I was very interested in the world and understanding what's happening around the world, and so that really sort of became a driving force, and I got connected to the woman that founded Network 2020, and that's how I got started. And that journey really, it opened up a lot of doors. It was through my initial work with Network 2020, and this was right after, I'm going to date myself, this is right after the attacks of September 11th and the subsequent invasion of Iraq. We were really focused on trying to bridge the gap between those in the United States and those in majority Muslim countries, and we're developing programs around that. And it was through that I became interested in the country of Turkey, and I started studying Turkish, and then I got a Fulbright grant to go study civil society development in Turkey. And so as these things inevitably happen, one step leads to another, and it isn't always a direct path. So after I did my Fulbright research in Turkey, I think I realized then that maybe I didn't want to be an academic per se, and so I was looking for different career options, but I was always still interested in international affairs. After that, I went to grad school, and I took a detour. While I was studying international relations in graduate school, I studied energy policy, thinking that was a way to marry some interests of mine. In particular, it's been interested in Russia and Near Asian history as well as Turkey, and so it seemed like a natural fit. But, and this might be a good word of advice, it was an idea that was given to me by a mentor, and it wasn't one that came from within, and as a result, it didn't last. And so while I am really glad that I know a lot about energy policy now, and I got some very good Excel skills out of it, it really makes sense to have what you study, and if you're going to invest a lot of time and money and energy into something, to really make sure it's what you want, and that is a bit of advice that I would want to share, although I'm sure most people would be a little bit more grounded than that. But inevitably, good things, you take a step and you learn from it. And so after that, I wound up working for a year in an energy company in New York, but then I was accepted into the U.S. Foreign Service. And so I then went abroad, and I spent 2 years in Turkmenistan, where I found this wonderful dog who was sitting next to me that you can't quite see right now. But I worked in cultural affairs for the U.S. Embassy in Turkmenistan, which was really, a phenomenal experience in many ways. While I was working there, I was on the board of Network 2020, and it came time that they needed a new leader, and they turned to me, and I was very honored to be asked. And I've actually been in this role now for over 5 years, so it's the longest I've stayed in any job. So I think it must be there must be something there that I like. So aside from the fact that there is no typical day, I would say that there are some commonalities, right? And I'd say a commonality is that I'm constantly trying to balance both the sort of admin side of running an organization, right? So making sure that the bills are paid, making sure that the insurance is in line, making sure that we're thinking ahead properly. So there's both the nitty-gritty, but then there's also and this is very, probably particular to nonprofits, but the looking around corners and thinking about the strategy. And that's where some of the strategy work from previous jobs comes in. So what that means is, right now I have a board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. And so what I'm thinking about is, do I have the documents ready? I'm preparing a budget for our next fiscal year. And so that requires thinking about what our needs are as an organization, and making sure we can actually hit the targets, because running a nonprofit is a lot about fundraising and figuring out where that income comes. And a lot of it isn't always reliable. And so I need to make sure that I can come up with the best, most accurate scenario that gets us where we want to go. And at the same time, I also have to prepare our board, which is about a dozen individuals who dip into this. I mean, obviously I'm in contact with them regularly, but their focus is elsewhere. They have other jobs, they have lives. And so I need to be able to bring them along with me and say, okay, did I get all the information to them so that they really get a sense of where we're at and where we need to go and what we need? And so that's a big part of the job. And so I'm always doing a little bit of that. I'm always doing a little bit of relationship management, whether it's with past speakers, whether it's with our advisory council or donors or people who are a part of the organization. So really always trying to keep that piece up. I'm trying to stay up to speed on foreign affairs, right? So I need to be able to do articles, and because we're a generalist organization, there's a lot to cover around the world. And so whether it's attending meetings of other organizations and think tanks or reading articles, I'm always trying to do a little bit of that. One really fun part of the job is we're running virtual briefings, and so I'm typically moderating those. So I'm either preparing for or actually running those, where I get to talk to really phenomenal and interesting people about their areas of expertise, and then running an organization, talking to, having staff meetings and making sure that, all our staff are prepared and have what they need, and that I'm checking, they're usually submitting things to me, whether it's grant applications or social media posts, things for me to check. So I'm constantly being that final guard on all the materials that go out. No, I would say that this is not what I had envisioned. I also don't think, like I said, that I had envisioned much other than becoming an artist, which I do on the side. And I think that maybe this is an important point to note, is that your life is comprised of many different pieces, right? And there's the professional piece, and there's the personal piece. There's whether you choose to have a family or not. And all of these things are integrated. And recently I've started, I've done a couple of things to fill out other areas of myself that I don't necessarily get through the professional work, and part of that is art. And I've started a small business on the side where I'm making art and doing some art markets, and so that's something that's totally separate. So I'm able to fill that piece. And I've also trained as a doula, because in college I had entertained the idea of perhaps becoming an obstetrician, but that never went anywhere. And so now I work as a doula as well on the side. And so I find that being able to tap into the different pieces of myself and honoring those different sides of myself, and finding that balance is really important. I think maybe it helps take the pressure off putting everything on one's job and one's career. If you can find all of that in one package, then that's fantastic. But if you can't, I think that there are other ways to maintain that balance. Practically, I would say get on the ground somewhere. It will all inevitably enrich your experience. If you leave where you're from, you will learn and you will legitimize yourself too in this field, because having that understanding and that adaptability, I think is really critical. Two, I would say, at least in this field, not necessarily in the nonprofit field, but sometimes in the international relations / think tank field, sexism can be it's a little bit more insidious. And I think it often takes the form of that one's ideas aren't as valued. And so I just say that as a note of caution and just recognition, so that if it ever feels like you have this idea about something that's important and you're not being heard, it doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is wrong. It might just mean that there's a structure in place that is sort of designed not to always hear your ideas. Related to that, I'm not going to say believe in yourself, but I would say take yourself seriously. And I think that there's a difference, because I think believe in yourself is like, yeah, rah, like believe in yourself. But like, I think take yourself seriously also means like take your ideas seriously. And that's something that sometimes I have a hard time with in the work that I'm doing, because I could look at this as, oh, I'm just organizing events. But when I take myself seriously, I'm thinking about the fact that I have an important and powerful platform, and that there's a responsibility and I can help shape a conversation. And that can be daunting, but I think it's also incredibly important and valuable. So that's my advice: is get on the ground somewhere and take yourself seriously, and find good networks, find good people to support you. So.